But we're going to talk cricket now because, as just Emma was telling you there, Brendon McCullum has become England's new white ball coach, taking over from Matthew Mott. He won't start the role until January when England head for India. We've got the Champions Trophy coming up after that. So Marcus Trescothick will look after the team in the interim period for these forthcoming games against Australia and beyond. Here with his reaction is the former England batsman, Mark Butcher. Good afternoon, Butch.
Hey, Butch.
How are you, fellas? All right.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Has this come as a bit of a surprise or not?
Well, I think it's the right thing to do, whether it's a surprise or not. And I don't want to, be the bloke who says, I told you so. But when this appointment was made, where are we now? Two and a bit years ago, I said that the best thing to happen would be for Brendon to take on the job across the board. And well, thankfully it's happened. In the interim, England have had a couple of very average performances in World Cups. And they've sacked Matthew Mott, who was the man that they gave the job in the first place. But my feeling was always that if you're going to have messaging across sort of like England's teams, the best thing to have is to have it come from one person, or to have the sort of like an overarching leader of the lot, so as to avoid that natural human instinct to kind of compare. This is from a player's point of view, to kind of like to compare the setups either favourably or unfavourably across the white ball and red ball team. So you've ended up in the right place eventually, I think.
It must be difficult if you are Matthew Mott and you're trying to get your message across, and you've got Brendon McCullum sort of in the background. I assume, I don't know if he'd have any input at all, but to have such a strong figure behind you or near you must be tough to coach in that way. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about it I don't think that there would have been any crossover as far as the two setups individually were concerned. But that to me was an issue, because the players, enough of the players moved between red ball and white ball squads for the players themselves to feel as though, perhaps one side was the grass was greener on one side than it was on the other. And anytime you get that kind of internal conflict, even though it's slightly sort of subconscious, you can end up with problems. And I'm not saying that's the reason why things didn't go so well for the Butler-Mott partnership, but there's always, if someone's doing brilliantly on one side of the fence and your team is struggling a little bit, it's a human nature that you'd look across the fence and think, maybe we could be doing better here. But I also think that the issue at the beginning was perhaps that McCullum didn't feel as though he wanted to take on the whole thing all at once. But I think ECB would have made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and therefore he's decided to come round.
Rob Key, the director of cricket, said the schedule is easing slightly next year, which is one of the reasons why he's taken it on. I wonder, Butch, whether we'll see a bit more crossover in personnel between white and red ball cricket.
I would imagine that's entirely possible. Yeah, I mean, the way that the test team plays is akin to the white ball game anyway.
Yeah.
And I've always been of the opinion that your best players are generally your best players, regardless of the format. The thing that makes them the best is that they are able to switch from one thing to another and handle the pressure equally well, dependent on the length of game. So look, there will be some crossover. There are some players, of course, who will only play in the white ball format. But there'll be guys who are playing in the red ball stuff who could definitely find themselves in. Ben Duckett, for example, would be one. Gus Atkinson's already played in some England white ball squads, so there'll be enough crossover to make it seamless in terms of you walk into the environment and it's the same in the white ball team as it is in the red ball team.
We've seen, though, maybe a bit more of a considered take in some of the passages of play in these games against Sri Lanka. A bit of Boyk's ball at time.
Yeah.
Mind Baz ball.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen some fairly slow considered scoring, old school Test cricket. They've been mixing it up a bit.
Yeah, but the results have remained favourable, right? So I again, I think that part of the maturing of the sort of the Bazball ethos, if you like, is that sometimes you can't just go with the ideology. Sometimes you've got to play the game that's in front of you, and if that means that you have to play in a slightly more considered way in order to get the win, then why not? And I have no problem with that at all.
Yes.
So I mean, I just find it's going to be a it's going to be a popular decision. This I don't sense a great deal of pushback from people within the game.
No, and I think it would be really helpful to Josh Butler as well. I'm still not entirely convinced that he is a natural sort of captain. I think he's a brilliant lieutenant. He was, Owen Morgan spoke of him glowingly in terms of the job that he did as a sort of second in command, albeit that he wasn't an official vice captain when Owen was in charge. But I'm still yet to see in the time that he's done it, sort of like the fact that it's really Josh Butler's team, and that he is the guy with the sort of the clarity of thought and vision, and the way that he reads the game to make it, absolutely his. And so therefore having a strong character like McCullum, who happens to love sort of a relaxed environment and atmosphere, can only be helpful to him.
Unfortunately, the word out of Lancashire is it looks like Josh Butler's going to miss the Australia T20s by the sound of it. He's not playing in the Blast quarter final. He's still not fit. No,
he's struggling with that calf injury. I mean, if he's been training at Old Trafford, the cricket ground, that is, the ground up there is bloody heavy, so that's not good for calves. No. So maybe that's an issue. I don't know. I mean, but it's certainly bad news that he doesn't get to take on Australia, because there's a pretty high profile series, albeit that it's just a bilateral and there's nothing more on it than that. But it's a great way to kind of test your team and the sort of the direction of travel to play against a world-class outfit like Australia.
We should finally remind the listeners that last time you came and chatted to us was about your new album. You got your album launch at the Oval, 27th of September. All proceeds to the Bob Willis Fund. You're going to be playing some live songs, aren't you?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and God bless you both for mentioning that. Very kind. 27th of September. Tickets are on sale on my website, markbutchermusic.com. It'd be great to see some TalkSport listeners along for what will be a fantastic night of music and raising a few quid to help get rid of prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Cheers, Butch. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Butch.
My pleasure.
There we are, Mark Butcher there, former England cricketer, on the news that Brendon McCullum will be looking after the white ball team from the new year.
It's good news, Paul.
Good news.
It's good
interested
news. Good for
cricket fans.
Good messaging for the Test team and for the whole of England.
I don't imagine a great deal of pushback, but let us know what you make of that. Brendon McCullum doing both jobs. Talksport.com, text 81089, tweet TSH and J 03717.
On AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.